I'm a judgy person. I walk through this world looking at people thinking things like, gosh, you're taking too long to pay for your groceries. I think, why is this gorgeous woman over there with this not so gorgeous guy? I see somebody wearing a fur coat and maybe carrying a little lapdog, and I think, sheesh, rich people, am I right? And I don't know if that makes me extremely judgy or maybe comparatively not so judgy. I don't think it matters. I just know it's not nice because I'm hardly ever curious enough to go back and see if my snap judgments are right or wrong. But what if I became curious, like now? I'm Jasmin Bayoni, and this is Little Devils. On this show, I'll look at the things that we're so quick to judge others and ourselves about. I'll explore the unseen, the flaws, the struggles, mistakes, and beliefs that haunt each one of us. Or, as I like to call them, our personalized little devils. It's Thanksgiving, and I'm invited to a friend's giving party. And I'm not that great in big groups, so I was really grateful when this guy, Endre, sat down next to me. He's an actor, and he made it really easy for me to feel less awkward. He laughed a lot, and he talked a lot, and overall, he was really charming. I liked him.
You say it's that little irrational thing in the back.
But when I asked him what he's up to these days, Endre could hardly finish a sentence.
Everything could collapse any second. I mean, my God, everything can...
He kept interrupting his own thoughts and was shifting to the edge of his chair, and he was squirming. He was starting and restarting sentences, and wow, I mean, to me, it seemed like he was really worried about saying the wrong thing and jinxing whatever he had planned. And in a way, he seemed tortured. It made me really curious what was going on with this guy. So for days after the dinner, he kept plopping back into my head. Who was this guy who was so afraid of his own words that it made him crawl out of his own skin?
I am an evil man.
This is Endre's voice.
I am wearing black. Black is an evil color.
That's him acting in a YouTube series 11 or so years ago.
I have made it my duty to spread evil every way I can.
The show is called An Evil Man.
I shall start with a pointy stick.
This YouTube show is all black and white. It's got this grainy camcorder video quality, and each episode is basically an artistic short film. In the videos, you can see him kind of mischievously looking at the camera, which is so close that it grotesquely distorts his facial features. And it's that same Endre that I met at the Thanksgiving dinner, except this version of him was owning his unease. He was playing it almost cartoonishly, like Dr. Evil gets lost in a small town in Germany meets French Noir.
Was actually like an incel character living in the basement, spreading hate and having a big hubris of believing that one could, do horrible things in the world, like he cuts his pubic hair and spreads it out from the church towers.
I shall spread my itchiness all upon this tiddly place, and while they're eating their ice cream,
It's stupid stuff like that, so in the end, it's always about a big monologue of I will become the biggest villain in the world, and then it's like I'm gonna put in some chocolate laxative into someone else's coffee. And then the person doesn't drink the coffee, and because the evil man is so impatient, he shows the person how to drink the coffee and drinks the other person's coffee instead in his rage, and drinks the laxative. So it's slapstick villain humor.
A few weeks after that Friendsgiving dinner, I decided to reach out to Endre, and we met in a plush back room of a theater where he works. And although he doesn't act anymore, it was through acting that he fell into this world filled with rehearsals and costumes and characters, just like the character of the evil man, that show that Endre and his friend Niles made for fun when they were students. And back then, this series was doing okay. It didn't go viral or anything, but it got a few thousand views. Then one day, Endre and his friend Niles decide that they needed a website for it.
We then thought, okay, it would be fun to have a domain, and it was the Evil Man 666.
Once the website's up, he posts a link on Facebook and he completely forgets about it and he goes to bed. And while he's sleeping, his phone starts buzzing. It's his dad, who is desperately trying to wake him up. And his dad calls and messages and calls again. But Endre doesn't wake up until the next morning.
I remember waking up and I missed his calls, and I thought really something happened. And then I called him, and then he was saying, "What are you doing with this devil man? And why would you use this number? Don't you see stuff could really happen here? This is no joke."
Endre's father was freaking out. He begged his son to please change the name of the domain and take out the 666.
For him, it was a little bit of a life and death thing. I mean, he was thinking of, he was saying stuff like, people might die with this. You're wishing, you're putting something out there. I mean, it sounds totally crazy, but he took it so seriously. I mean, in the aftermath,
his dad's behavior
thinking,
was
my God,
nothing
what if
new
I
for
killed
Endre.
my father?
He's always
Maybe
been
they
quite the
really-
character who indulged in superstitions. In fact, one of Endre's early childhood memories paints a really good picture. He was around 6 or 7 years old. Picture a quintessential medieval city in Switzerland, Basel. There's a gorgeous river that runs through it. There's hills in the distance, traditional picturesque architecture, and this is where Endre grew up. This is also where his dad lived for most of his life. Picture that really pretty city and a tram running through it, and on that tram, little Endre and his father, somewhere in the late 80s or early 90s maybe. And little Endre says something that he can't quite remember. It must have been something that his dad wouldn't have liked.
I think it was something like harsh. I wish that wouldn't happen, or that would be canceled. Something like that.
Or maybe he wished the school burned down, who knows, but whatever he said, his dad was shocked.
My father then said, this was the first time I heard this sentence, he said, "Nefest azurde götterfara," which means don't paint the devil onto the wall. And then, I said, what is that? I said, well, you say things and, you don't want to wish ungood things onto people because they might happen.
This was the first time that Endre had been made aware of this other set of rules that people lived by. These magical rules of sorts, where anything you do or say could cause a shift in the universe. And then, one day, not too long after that moment on the tram, Endre and his dad were passing some time on the playground, and Endre was hanging upside down on a monkey bar.
I was hanging in the air, dangling in the air, but I had it all under control and all that. And I made this stupid joke. I was like, hey, well, you know what? Tell my mother goodbye. I loved her so much all my life. I made this farewell speech, watching too many ridiculous war movies or I don't know, adventure movies. And in that moment, I lost control because I guess I was speaking, and I fell all the way, like from 3-4 meters, straight on my back.
Endre falls, and his dad looks at him and says, "You see?" And finally, Endre could see what his father saw all along. It was like he walked through this gateway into a parallel universe where things go wrong if you provoke it. It was the beginning of a new way of thinking for Endre, a superstitious way of thinking.
I was just seeing myself being caught up in a wheelchair. I thought, oh my God, what happens if from this stupid joke or whatever, I'm now punished and I will, be paralyzed. See, I don't even want to say it because you see, this is the thing. I couldn't even say it now. I didn't want to say it. I was totally becoming aware of these things that, if you say something or if you wish something, you don't want to influence that to happen.
Endre saw it. Bad things could happen. And keeping bad things from happening was at the center of his family's existence. Endre's mom and dad were both musicians. His dad was a highly successful saxophone player.
Our household was always deemed loud from the outside, of course.
But on the inside that family bubble, Endre was surrounded by people who believed that the world holds magic. Endre grows up and goes to study in a small town in Germany. And there, he lives among people called Torben and Florian or Rebecca. Just regular German people. And these people, it's like they'd never encountered this magical way of moving through the world.
Lots of my German friends will say, superstition, what do you mean superstition? You just get this and that practicum and do this and that, and then you just show up and you get the job.
They knew that they had to go through certain steps, which would usually lead them to achieve whichever goals they pursued. Regular adult things.
So it was just this very very classic German way and also this very sober way to see things, which I thought that I was maybe trying to reintegrieren myself into that into that maybe, I don't know.
Away from his family, Endre felt really out of place. And so he started observing the others and mirroring what they did.
And there, I must say, there I realized, yes, there I also started to also see our family history differ. This whole thing that my father, oh my God, he was so crazy with his superstitions and all this things. And I guess this is going to be an eternal complex, right? Because okay, God, I'm really, I can't speak freely.
There he is. That's the Endre that can't finish a sentence. That's the Endre that I met at dinner. Endre gets settled in Germany, and he tries to make sense of the fact that what seemed so normal to him growing up, these superstitious beliefs in his family, it wasn't normal to others at all. At the same time, his dad finds a new love. It's a woman from Hungary. He marries her and he moves back to Budapest. And his new wife also has these superstitious beliefs, just like Endre's dad, maybe even more.
There it's this whole interaction with this whole metaphysical consciousness was totally part of the everyday practice. If you walk past people on the street and you could not give money like to beggars, if you cannot give something, don't look them directly in the eye. And if you do, then you have to go.
That sound, that's Endre mimicking the sound that his stepmom used to make, these small spits of air.
Because that you can deflect their malwishes, that you could not give something.
These little habits of hers seemed to rub off on Endre's dad. And over time, Endre becomes aware of this new divide between them.
He's back in Budapest, where he's amongst his old friends and all that. And they're all crazy over there. And for me, it was also a power struggle to think, hey, I'm not going to get involved with your quote-unquote barbaric ways of thinking.
Which brings us back to the YouTube series, An Evil Man. It was around that time that Endre woke up to a bunch of missed calls and messages from his dad. And it wasn't even the title that was the issue. It was the show domain, An Evil Man 666.
He said, this is the devil's number. Don't you know you're conjuring him? This is a number that produces evil, and you're spreading it, and you're being part of it. You're enabling it. You're conjuring it. You're conveying it.
Endre had been living according to the mantra, out of sight, out of mind. And his family's superstitious beliefs, well, they were in the rearview mirror. But when his dad called, it stirred up these old feelings.
The Hungarian discussion is first 10 calls where we yell at each other, no one listens. And I'm like, are you crazy? What are you talking about? This is totally paranoid. This is really getting out of hand. I was lecturing him about superstition. I said, come on, guys, this is superstitious. This is really crazy talk. What is going on here? And after, I'd say 2 hours of back and forth and hanging up and calling back and texting and then calling again, all this big drama, I did say, so what do you want me to do? He said, well, tell this Niles guy to take it off. And then that took another hour of like, okay, what are you, I'm not good. I mean, I was also ashamed. I didn't want to tell Niles to, hey, come on, this is crazy.
Why were you ashamed?
Well, because I thought it was crazy. I did think it was crazy.
Honestly, I probably would have reacted just like Endre. It just makes no rational sense to me. But Endre told me that there's a reason for all of this. And it all has to do with a family legend. It's a story involving Swiss bureaucracy, of all things. See, Endre's parents weren't the only ones in the family who were musicians. The entire side of his dad's family played music, and they would all perform together as a band. And they didn't just immigrate to Switzerland because they felt like it. They had ended up there as refugees from Hungary, where they were all superstars. Everybody knew them from the radio, from TV, and concerts. They were a huge hit with this American-style music.
Kérek szépen a dobos, aki szintén lakatos, de névrokonok, de nagyon szeretik egymást azért. A Géza, Pecek.
But then, after a failed uprising against communism in Hungary in 1956, they started being seen as a threat to communist values. The music was a bit too American, too Western. And so the family started feeling the political pressure. That's why the band decided that was the perfect time to go on a quote-unquote tour across Europe. For several years, Endre's grandfather and the rest of the family traveled across Europe, and they played music wherever somebody would let them.
I mean, they played in strip bars also, right? They just were, jumping from town to town. And then they landed in Switzerland, and somehow my grandfather, he said, this is a good harbor place.
Endre's granddad decided to put down roots in Switzerland. And once he made that decision, the entire family went ahead and applied for asylum, which they were granted. And so somebody from the family would keep going to the state migration office and get an extension for their refugee status again and again and again. Some years go by, and they're all ready to apply for permanent residency. So one day, Endre's grandfather goes up to the state migration office, and he's equipped with all the papers for the application.
And the person said, no. Gave the no stamp. Said, no, you guys have to leave the country now in the next, I think, 24 hours or something. So they were standing in front of this Amt in Basel.
Endre's granddad walks out of the building and over to the family, and he gives them the bad news.
And then somehow, I don't know why, but they said, you know what? Go back and just ask again. So they went back like a half an hour later. My grandfather went back in.
This time, there was a different person behind the desk, a woman.
And he went and said, hello, blah, 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 showed the papers. And she was like, wait a sec, Holezi, aren't you the band leader from da-da-la-la-la, from Budapest? Yes, well, you played on the wedding of da-da-la-la-la back then and da-da-la-la-la in Budapest. Well, yes. And she said, she looked around, don't worry, da-da-la, boom, took out and put the stamp on, and that was the entry. Serendipity. I guess, yeah, our founding moment was built on these luck. And our story was always this, wow. And of course we were, I always have to, that's why I guess I'm always afraid to jinx it, because we were fucking lucky. Yes, in the aftermath, it was always lucky. And there's always the panic of losing that luck. There was lots of luck, but it was always this thing, this could just fall away.
His dad had worked all his life to make sure that hard work was met by a benevolent universe, which sounds like a really difficult balancing act. And now, here was his son toying around with exactly that balance by putting up a website for his YouTube show with the URL anevilman666.com.
I thought it was crazy, but then the more we started to discuss, when I really felt that he was really afraid, genuinely afraid. And I knew it wasn't just, I knew it wasn't just his social fear or his environment and it was really an innate thing that he was really afraid. He really believed in this. And there I then thought, okay, my God, well then I started working on Niles, and that took another half a day to really, because Niles did this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the day, I really said, please, my father really believes in this. He's suffering, and I can't do I can't do this project anymore. Otherwise, I can't do this to him. And that was somehow the turning point. And then Niles took it off. And the funny thing is, I felt better then. I did feel better. I didn't want it. I was then, so when I was starting to think of it, of course, with this whole panic coming from my father, I did think, okay, it's true. Actually, I don't want it tied to my name, even if it's fiction.
That's it. The argument is over. In a way, I can see a lot of Endre's dad in Endre, in the way that he's relieved after they changed the domain name. Not just because his dad finally stopped calling him about it, but because a little piece of him maybe did think that his dad might be right. And at the same time, I do see somebody who's incredibly reluctant to give superstitions too much weight. And these two truths make up the Endre that I met at Thanksgiving dinner. It's like I could almost see how his heart and his brain were competing to win the fight. You seem so tortured.
Yeah.
Is that actually true?
Hey, I was tortured because it was just for me, Yes, I came just out of this whole transition. I was really on this juncture. Should I? The opportunities were there to maybe pursue that.
Endre was at a big turning point of his career at that moment. He'd just gone a few rounds for a job application and was really psyched. But he couldn't tell me any of that because he was so afraid to jinx it.
Yes, I was panicked that now it's a nice Thanksgiving evening. We had this divine turkey. It was a nice atmosphere, and then it just felt go. I had this desire to let go. I wanted to finally say yes. Somehow this new thing is going to open up, and it's actually the thing I was looking for. The only things that really ever worked out for me, if I somehow it's toxic. It's a toxic thing what I'm going to say. If I just kept it in me, I didn't tell anybody, and then somehow, boom, I let you see now, look, I really switch into language. I let the gods and goddesses do their thing, and somehow the universe snapped, aligned into one perfect moment, and then things worked.
Each time Endre talked about a good thing that he was excited about, it didn't come true.
I can't really pinpoint, I can't identify clearly where that is from. I still refuse to somehow say I am in some way superstitious in that sense. I am maybe a practitioner of superstition to some very weird paradoxical level. And that's why I was squirming. I was constantly, no, I don't want to talk. Don't say it. I just don't want.
On the other hand, he did want to say it because it would bring such a great feeling of relief.
You say something and it's like a cathartic moment. And I was really, really also longing for that cathartic moment.
In which way do you think your dad's superstitious beliefs have somehow had an impact on your life right now?
An impact on my life right now. Well, when I saw my father die, I was there, and from one moment he was there, the other moment he was not there, and in that moment, this is maybe to say anything else about that moment than to accept. Wow, well, it's gone. He's gone, and that is horrible to say. But it would feel really weird to say, oh, he's on the stars somewhere and he's looking down at this moment.
But still, there's this thing that happens to him all the time. He'd be walking down the street or standing at a traffic light, struggling with some sort of decision that he can't make. And then, out of nowhere, something would happen that reminds him of his dad. Something that he can't ignore.
Suddenly a car stops in front of the red light with rolled down windows, and some song comes out with a saxophone solo in it, and I'm like, oh my God, what the, I don't want to use the word sign. I would just say it's an absurd coincidence that is connected with the materiality of the world that then makes me engage with the present moment. And then I think of him. So in that sense, yes, if I think of these stories, yes, they are a reminder of our togetherness.
But are you trying to say that holding or keeping, treasuring some of these thought patterns, I don't want to call them beliefs right now, but is that a way to grieve your dad?
Yeah, maybe that is why I'm not letting go of, yes, or I like to keep a back door open, or paradoxical, or like to keep this whole thing a little bit. It's a homage. It's always a homage. So maybe this little rest of the, if one would want to call it superstition, is my little homage to my father and to my grandfather. This is maybe keeping them alive, even and in this whole paradoxical mode that knowing it's somewhere BS, but the fact that I am keeping that somewhere alive in me is also keeping them alive and keeping me connected with them, even though I know they're not there.
Yes. And it is, though, an homage that you did not choose to go into. Would you want to change it?
Why? I mean, at the moment, no. I mean, I don't feel the urge to, and maybe, yeah, okay, wow. Oh, darn. Wow, or am I still in the process of mourning? Yeah, that could also be. Oh, darn. Yeah, that could also be. I mean, yeah, it takes many years. It was 2016. Yeah.
Because what would it mean if you let go of these beliefs and of these patterns?
Yeah. Wow, yeah. Yeah, I guess. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that is. No, I wouldn't. No. Yeah, it's somewhere not letting go, yeah. Definitely. And it's still somewhere a realization, or still not having fully grasped, right, that he's not there, because he really was. I mean, we had an intense and beautiful relationship, and yeah, and this whole thing, we couldn't really say goodbye and all that, so that was all these. I mean, he did it in his own way. I was walking on the street, and he called 2 days before that final fatal operation, all that he. We were just talking, talking. I was on the street, and and then he said, "Well, the joke. The guy goes to the doctor and says, 'I have bad news for you, and this is, you don't have much longer to live.'" And the guy says, "Well, what do you mean? How much time? What do you mean?" And he says, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. But that was actually the last. Yeah, that was the last joke. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Some of Endre's theater colleagues pop their head into the room, and turns out they need it, so we get kicked out. And as we're packing up,
I'm actually terrified now that I'm going to look at my phone, and there's going to be 10 calls, there's going to be something horrible, or I'm going to look at the email, and there's going to be something there of, hey, I'm very sorry, something came up, we're gonna change plans. I mean, here I become a conspiracy theorist. That's why it's so paranoid, because I believe in the institutions, I believe in democracy and all that, but I also know exactly how, things can flip in a second. Yeah, like a darn Asylantrag, you can just go back a half an hour later, and boom.
With our entire conversation, Endre has spent at least an hour provoking that parallel universe that he learned to embrace as a kid. And by doing that, he could have jinxed everything. So, of course, I challenge him to look at his phone.
Let's have a look at your phone. Real quick. And then we'll end that.
Okay, the email. Okay, the emails. Okay, nothing changed on the emails. I'm looking at WhatsApp. Okay, missed call from them, but that's okay. The moment. Look on the signal. Nothing there. Yeah, okay. No, okay. Wait, the last look on the iMessage. Okay, nothing. Oh, and the Telegram. No, okay, no, nothing. Okay. Well, I don't want to go woohoo yet, I still, but yes, it's a great feeling to know. Okay,
It's a great feeling to know, okay, everything's okay. If after all of this you'd asked me if Endre was superstitious, I couldn't tell you. What is clear, though, is that he misses his father and everything that reminds him of him, even the superstitions. And it could be easy to pass judgment on a guy who's constantly afraid to jinx things and calling that his little devil, the thing that haunts him. But Endre no longer strikes me as haunted. And knowing what I know now, I don't think it's that bad to be a quote-unquote practitioner of superstition. Don't I knock on wood and cross my fingers hoping something will work out in my favor? I sure do. Thank you to Endre for telling us his story, and to his family for letting us use their music. And thank you for listening. Make sure to follow the show wherever you're listening and tell your friends and family about it. Little Devils is a TRZ Media original. It's our first independent original show. Yay! We truly believe in these kinds of stories and would love to bring more of them to your ears. And to do that, we just need a little bit of a push. And that's where you come in. If you want to support us and support these kinds of stories, go to patreon.com/Little Devils to become part of the community. If you join now, you can get the podcast episodes without ads, and you'll get some exclusive behind-the-scenes material and special episodes and a few other treats. We can't wait to hear more from you over there and hear your personal Little Devil stories. You can also email us at info@trz-media.de. And you can also find us on Instagram at Little Devils Show. You can also find me on Instagram. I am at Jasmin Bayoumi. That is JasminBayomy. Little Devils is hosted, reported, and co-created by me, Jasmin Bayoumi, and a small but mighty team of people. My co-creator and co-producer is Marta Medveshek, and this episode was edited by Tim Howard. Mix and sound design by Marta Medveshek. Robin Drömer is our executive producer. Original score by Phoebe McIndoe and Nicolas Teubal. Mastering by Joscha Grunewald. And our beautiful cover art is by Fanny Grabolle. Thank you to everyone who supported, listened, and spent the time giving feedback about the episodes. We couldn't have done this without you. So many thanks to Eileen Mutlu, Hannah Herbst, Hanna Medveshek, Isabella Manich, Jan Böhmermann, Kiana Mokattam, Natalina Pereira, Lena von Holt, Robin Kerkhoff, Sanya, Dosani, Sarah, Zare, Hushiari, Kha, and Teresa Emmat. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll hear you soon.